Lesson 21. Boxing. Boxing matches were very popular in England 200 years ago. Boxing is show business with blood. Boxing is the single most inhuman sport which only humans can invent. Boxer. In those days, boxers fought with bare fists for prize money. Boxing is a rough sport in which one boxer tries to knock the other out. Bare. In those days, boxers fought with bare fists for prize money. You'll cut yourself if you walk on the sand in bare feet. The mulberry trees were bare and the fields were brown. Prize fighter. Because of this, they were known as prize fighters. Crude. Johnny's way of dealing with hooligans was very crude but highly effective. Harry began to reveal himself as more than merely crude. Marquis. The Marquis is a great patron of art. Technically. I wonder whether he is a political prisoner. He isn't technically, yet he is. Science. The computer is one of the marvels of modern science. The great tragedy of science, the slaying of a beautiful theory by an ugly fact. Popularity. In his day, Mendoza enjoyed tremendous popularity. He was some 50 years of age, and his popularity was at its height. The drivelling songs seem to have kept in popularity. Adore. He was adored by rich and poor alike. Alike. The sun shines all alike. Fame. Mendoza rose to fame swiftly after a boxing match when he was only 14 years old. Vera was in no way moved by either his wealth or fame. A few poems and some stories. These are Edgar Allan Poe's claim to fame as a writer. Eminent. Watson was eminent among his contemporaries. Bitterly. The ministry was attacked bitterly by not carrying out a more radical policy. Hal was bitterly unhappy and proved it forcefully. Bet, bet, betted, betted. The public bet a great deal of money on Mendoza, but he was defeated. You can bet your boots that he will come. Academy. Pablo Picasso graduated from the Royal Academy of Fine Arts in Madrid. Perhaps to discipline him, his father sent him to a faraway Admiral Academy. Extravagant. Despite this, he was so extravagant that he was always in debt. His description of Gatsby's extravagant parties are closer to satire than eulogy. It is difficult for him to part with his extravagant habits. Poverty. He was sent to prison for failing to pay his debts and died in poverty in 1836. At last, from great wealth, he fell into direct poverty. Lesson 22. Run, ran, run. Some players are so successful that they run for years on end. Jim's was a one-man show, and he ran it brilliantly. The play ran for 2 consecutive years in Broadway. Lines. Perhaps the most famous line in Shakespeare's is, "To be or not to be." Actors are likely to freeze on the stage when they forget their lines. Part. One would expect them to know their parts by heart and never have cause to falter. Have you learned your parts yet? Such parts are often considered to be thankless and unrewarding. Falter. Trembling with shock, she managed to falter out a few words of thanks. He is not likely to falter on such an occasion. Cast. Cast. The director cast me as a mad scientist. An unknown boy was cast in the leading role. Role. He prefers to play comic roles. Once more, she was aware that the role of scapegoat had fallen to her. Aristocrat. Anna Christie was a born aristocrat. Can't you see he just wants to play the aristocrat? Imprison. Another picture shows Danae in the Brazen Tower, in which her father had imprisoned her. Bastille. Jailer. The kind jailer agreed to post the letter for the prisoner. Colleague. My colleagues read the communiqué with astonishment rather than excitement. Candid advice to the president by his colleagues is inhibited. Curtain. The curtain is up when the audience enters the theatre. As the curtain rises, a garden is seen on the stage. Reveal. The curtain was raised to reveal a darkened stage. The porter held the lantern and revealed the face of Dr. Rubber. Cell. He was first confined to a cell. Blank. It was simply a blank sheet of paper. My mind went blank. His face is quite blank. Squint. The sun was so bright that I had to squint. He took careful aim, squinting down the rifle barrel. Dim. Instead of a dim glow, we now see countless stars. Sire. Sire, do I have your permission to withdraw? The people await you, sire. Proceed. I thank you kindly, but will still proceed. The student paused to consult his notes, and then proceeded with his questions. Lesson 23. Poison. One man's meat is another man's poison. They hate each other like poison. Illogical. Many of his arguments are illogical. Octopus. When endangered, octopuses eject an inky substance which is used as a screen. Delicacy. Caviar is a great delicacy. Repulsive. You would not be able to understand why some people find it repulsive. Toads and snakes are repulsive to many people. Stomach. An army travels on its stomach. Turn. Fatty food turns my stomach. Don't tell me about any more of the horror film. You are making my stomach turn. Fry. Fry the steak for 5 minutes and then turn it and fry the other side. The eggs are frying in the pan. Fat. The fat in the fryer had heated all right. Our body cells require many substances, such as iron, certain vitamins, and fats. Abuse. No creature has received more praise and abuse than the common garden snail. Such abuse does Denise more good than vitamins. The gardener shouted abuse at the boy for stealing his peaches. Snail. The shell of a snail is carried on its back, and its eyes are on long stems. Dear me, can't you walk quicker? A snail, by comparison, is supersonic. Luxury. Cooked in wine, snails are a great luxury in various parts of the world. In general, most less developed countries attempt to tax luxuries. Breakfast in bed is a luxury I haven't had for years. Associate. She cannot help associating the house with a scene of violent death. I associate his queer temper with his unhappy childhood. Despise. My friend Robert lives in a country where snails are despised. Rachel had come to despise the girl with whom she had shared a flat. Appeal. The idea never appealed to me very much. Does the idea of investing in food colouring appeal to you? This film appeals to all above 3. Shower. One day, after a heavy shower, I happened to be walking in my garden. Stroll. She went out for a stroll on the beach. Shall we take a stroll about the room? Impulse. Irving was a man of impulse, a poet. On an impulse, he kicked some sand into Richie's hole. Dozen. He recited a dozen instances. It is 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. Fancy. I did not fancy the idea and reluctantly followed Robert out of the room. Don't you fancy anything? I don't fancy swimming in such weather. Lesson 24. Skeleton. A skeleton in the cupboard. The quiet street stretched out on either side like the arms of a skeleton. The poor old man was just a skeleton. Seemingly. Any seemingly viable proposition will be tested by market research. The negotiations had come to a seemingly unbreakable deadlock. Respectable. She was under a respectable roof, and among kind, though rough, people. He put on the only respectable hat he had. Conceal. I observed that they both appeared to conceal themselves. Vivid. The English language possesses a vivid saying to describe this sort of situation. That episode was still so vivid to her. Dramatic. Ruined. Jimmy had ruined everything. One man's mental blackout ruined the last hope of 2 nations. Heroine. The C stories are sometimes weakened by the necessity for a heroine. In the movie The Colour Purple, the actress Whoopi Goldberg plays the heroine. Fiction. It is all very well for such things to occur in fiction. Truth is often stranger than fiction. Varying. Both sisters are fastidious, only in varying degrees. He has got used to her varying moods. Medicine. George studied medicine in his youth. Modern medicine can cure many diseases that used to kill many people. Medicine is always a little behind illness. Guest room. George showed me to the guest room which, he said, was rarely used. Oddly enough, the family preferred to live in the guest room. In the spring cleaning, Mother forgot about the 3 guest rooms upstairs. Unpack. He told me to unpack my things and then come down to dinner. She unpacked the novels she had brought with her and turned them over. 42 medium-range nuclear missiles are being unpacked. Stack. The goods are specially packaged so that they stack easily. The workers stack the bricks up against the wall. Underclothes. Cotton underclothes are good for the skin. The lace on the underclothes had become loose. Drawer. The key is in the top drawer of my desk. She emptied the drawer, but the letter was not there. Petrify. I opened the cupboard door and then stood in front of it, petrified. Everyone is petrified with terror. The monster in the film petrified the baby. Dangle. A skeleton was dangling before my eyes. What is that dangling above your head? He saw Edna passing with a sewing kit dangling from her arm. Sway. A wind swayed the willows. The senator tried to sway the president's opinion in favor of new immigration laws. Unsympathetic. But George was unsympathetic. He dismissed the event with a most unsympathetic shrug. By nature, he is not an unsympathetic man. Medical. You forgot that I was a medical student once upon a time. She visited the local medical clinic for a flu shot. He has to have a medical exam before going abroad. Lesson 25. Impressive. She serves as an impressive reminder of the great ships of the past. The Minister of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs made an impressive speech. Steamship. Steamships are large non-military ships driven by steam power. The designer put a steamship model on the desk and asked the assistants to approach. Vessel. He drifted about the house like a rudderless vessel in a rocky stream. A French naval vessel is in the harbour. Era. It marked the end of the great tradition of ships with sails and the beginning of a new era. Java. Rudder. Both our engines and rudder have got out of control. Roll. The Cutty Sark rolled from side to side, and it became impossible to steer her. Kiefer screamed with pain and rolled on the ground. Steer. The oiler steered, and the little boat made good way. Yet he went on trying to steer the ship of their dual life. Temporary. To each passenger, his seat was his temporary home. The land sail was a mere temporary expedient for dealing with an immediate need. Plank. This small bridge is made of thick planks. Fit. We're fitting new locks on the door. He has the upper floor and ramps are fitted everywhere for his convenience. Equator. The equator is a great circle midway between the North and South poles. Delay. Even this was remarkable, considering that she had had so many delays. What's the delay? Anyone finding the wallet is requested to bring it without delay to the town hall. Lesson 26. Influence. No one can avoid being influenced by advertisements. Do not imagine that I want to influence you. The same reasons which influenced me then will influence me now. Pride. Newland Archer always prides himself on his knowledge of Italian art. He prided himself on always doing the thing he had determined to do. Taste. There is no accounting for tastes. Exert. The consumer will exert a measure of influence over the market economy. Bob's parents have been exerting pressure on him to give up his job. Subtle. Satire is a subtle art. This is an extremely subtle diplomatic problem and needs careful handling. Advertiser. This advertiser seems to have exhausted his wits. The advertiser split off from his partner and started a company of his own. Classify. He classified the phenomena he observed according to the way he sensed them. Magic. An advertisement which begins with the magic word free can rarely go wrong. Ma Liang, the magic brush, is one of my favourite tales. She has a magic touch with plants. There is a green kingdom on her balcony. Sample. The shopping mall is giving away free samples of this new brand of cooking oil. The nurse took a sample of my blood. Devise. They devised hundreds of competitions, which will enable us to win huge sums of money. Capture. The company captures a large share of the market. Manufacturer. The air conditioner did not work, so we sent it back to the manufacturer. Wheelbarrow. One lady brought in a biscuit on a wheelbarrow. The gardener put the withered flowers in his wheelbarrow. Roger hid the stolen statue in a wheelbarrow and came back for it at midnight. Boot. A little later, a man came along with a biscuit which occupied the whole boot of his car. Among other problems, the cardinal was too small and had no boot. I found a little cat sleeping in the boot of my car. Ingredient. Flour and honey are the most important ingredients. Inspiration and perspiration are the ingredients of success. Crane. It was so heavy that a crane had to be used to remove it from the lorry. The band hired a crane to lift the piano into the theatre. Anticipate. In business, you've got to anticipate how your competitors will act. Lesson 27. Philosopher. Few philosophers live philosophically. Wisdom. Wisdom is the knowledge of good and evil, not the strength to choose between the two. There was a certain wisdom in his words. Priest. Roman Catholic priests are not free to marry. The citizen served as warrior in youth and priest in his old age. Spiritual. What she wants is nothing but spiritual peace. The world would be a better place if everyone found his own spiritual home. Grudge. He grudged his horse the grass it ate. Surgeon. A good surgeon is said to have an eagle's eye, a lion's heart, and a lady's hand. Passerby. Beggars almost sell themselves as human beings to arouse the pity of passerbys. At least 3 passerbys witnessed the accident. The tourist stopped a passerby and asked him the way. Dignity. In seeking independence, they do not sacrifice their human dignity. It wounded his dignity, and he locked himself up in silence. My dear Glaucus, a Roman noble has his dignity to keep up. Deliberately. I've never hurt anyone deliberately. The spy deliberately let out the secret. Consequence. The consequences of every act are included in the act itself. In consequence, he was dismissed from his post. Afflict. All of them were afflicted with a feeling of sad helplessness. Peptic ulcer of the stomach afflicts more than 10 million people in the world. Ease. Her attention was given to enjoying Marian's ease of manner and flow of ideas. He settled himself on the chair perfectly at ease. Nature. Layla is a true daughter of nature. They stopped to admire the beauties of nature. Contempt. Owen was listening to this farrago with feelings of contempt and wonder. The rich were out of her reach, and the poor were beneath her contempt. Envious. He was envious of everyone else's success. It made me a little envious that I was not a member of their club. Lesson 28. Wares. Small boats loaded with wares sped to the great river as she was entering the harbour. Our company is not interested in these pretty wares. Anchor. One of the two aircraft carriers was anchored in Greece. Scobie went out in the police boat as soon as the liner anchored. Deck. Let's go up on deck and sit in the sun. The captain called the sailors up onto the main deck. Silverware. She has a passion for silverware. Vanilla's husband gave her a set of silverware on her wedding anniversary. Tempt. It was difficult not to be tempted. A mad scheme like this was bound to tempt me. Can't I tempt you to have another helping? Bargain. He was immediately lost in the noisy crowd, where everyone was bargaining keenly. Disembark. They disembarked in Amsterdam after crossing the Atlantic. It is still unclear whether they will disembark at all. Assail. The visiting president was assailed with stones and eggs. He was assailed with questions after the lecture. Marble. Some of them were as big as marbles. Just let's consider how long a row of 10 million marbles would be. Inscribe. The scholar was presented with a specially inscribed copy of the book. They have inscribed their names upon the pages of history. Favour. There can be no greater error than to expect real favour from nation to nation. As a special favour, I'll let you stay up and watch the World Cup final. Gesticulate. The teacher gesticulated to stress the importance of the point. He had a habit of gesticulating while he speaks. Outrageous. The hotel charges outrageous prices. Thrust. He hurriedly thrust a gun into his pocket. Lesson 29. Largely. Whether we find a joke funny or not largely depends on where we have been brought up. We are well aware he gave in largely because he had no other choice. The secretary is largely responsible for the accident. Comic. Many funny stories are based on comic situations. He put up a comic countenance. Universal. In spite of national differences, certain funny situations have a universal appeal. In his best work, the local becomes the universal. Education, in theory, was free and universal. Comedian. The comedian made the audience roll with laughter. He doesn't have the making of a comedian. Distasteful. Many people find this sort of joke distasteful. This is a distasteful place. Even the flowers seem to be poisoned. Pester. The little girl has been pestering her parents to take her to the fun fair. He is continually being pestered by journalists. Dread. He dreaded having to spend Christmas. He dreaded telling us the truth. The more you dread a misfortune, the more it is likely to happen. Recovery. Though the doctor did his best, the patient's recovery was slow. The whole team was relieved at his recovery. Plaster. On Christmas Day, the man still had his right leg in plaster. His left arm is in plaster. Console. Console yourself with the thought that it might have been worse. Hobble. Suddenly the door opened and an old woman, leaning on a crutch, hobbled out. The poor old dog hobbled off with his master. Compensate. You will have to compensate us for the loss. Mumble. He was still mumbling something about hospitals at the end of the party. Lesson 30. Labourer. Farm labourers said that they always wake up to find that work had been done overnight. The farmer hired several day labourers. During the break, several labourers got together and played poker. Overnight. First, high birth rates cannot be altered substantially overnight. Hay. Hay had been cut and cowsheds had been cleaned. The cows have plenty of hay to eat this winter. We must make hay while the sun shines. Corn. A field of ripe corn is spreading before them. Moonlight. I would rather travel by moonlight. How sweet the moonlight sleeps upon this bank. Conscientious. Everyone can see this is a conscientious piece of work. Suspect. No one suspected that there might be someone else on the farm who had never been seen. It has long been suspected of being the source of many of the illnesses of man. They suspect him of giving false evidence. Desert. As he hated army life, he decided to desert his regiment. They will not desert, because if they do, their families will be shot. I have deserted from the army. Regiment. The two soldiers belonged to the same regiment. A regiment went by in the road, and I watched them pass. Action. His father told everybody that Eric had been killed in action. On August the 7th, 1942, the Allies began their first offensive action in the Pacific. There will be lots of action around these parts. Recluse. All these years, Eric had lived as a recluse. A recluse is a person who lives alone away from the world and avoids other people. Tao Yuanming is the most famous and admirable recluse in Chinese history. Lesson 31. Lovable. A lovable eccentric. The girl is simply lovable. Eccentric. True eccentrics never deliberately set out to draw attention to themselves. He is an eccentric in the true sense of the word, but he resents being so called. Griffin is the neighborhood eccentric. Disregard. Duty, affection, everything was disregarded. Convention. The old boy was explosive. He must have smashed up a lot of conventions in his days. Conscious. I was conscious that I had made a mistake. Absorbed, he was conscious neither of time nor space. Invariably. The moon invariably displays the same face to the earth. Mrs. Castle was invariably standing there on the porch waiting for her son. Routine. I continued to follow my old weekly routine. Such reports had been routine for 18 months. Shrewd. He was a shrewd and wealthy businessman. Eccentricity. She developed a few harmless eccentricities. This is an innate eccentricity of human nature. Legendary. His legendary escape from prison would never be forgotten. Snob. Dickie disliked snobs intensely. No one who knew Gerald would connect him with a snob. She had no renowned ancestors and thought people who had were snobs. Intensely. In other words, his disposition was very similar to that of a pig, intensely selfish. The baby's hair is intensely black. Bedraggled. Do you want to see your own sister in such a bedraggled condition? Dump. As it was extremely heavy, he dumped it on the counter. The workman dumped his box on top of some others and turned back. Waste is dumped into the lake. Apologetic. The smile was awkward, almost apologetic. He made a little apologetic gesture. Reprimand. In other days, she would have been forced at least to reprimand him severely. Cooper reprimanded his daughter for driving too fast and getting a speeding ticket. Stage. It took him 4 years to stage this elaborate joke. The father staged an accident to collect insurance for his only son. Is it worthwhile to stage such a vigorous drive for the new aid bill? Elaborate. Do you suppose it's all an elaborate scheme to trap the spy? They felt that the plan of the kidnapping was too elaborate to be the work of a boy. Lesson 32. Salvage. The salvage operation had been a complete failure. A Russian salvage company has located a German wreck. Barents. Sunken. I prefer to let the sunken ships sleep in the sea. Cargo. Cargo is carried on ships, airplanes and trucks. Bullion. The bank keeps bullion locked in its cellars. Large quantities of bullion are stored in the castle. Scour. The next morning, Archer scoured the town in vain for yellow roses. Chest. It remains to be seen whether my lost chests will come to light. She would deny that there had ever been a chest in the room. Contents. He guessed the contents before opening the parcel. What are the contents of the crate which weighs several hundred kilograms? Belongings. The chest contained the personal belongings of a seaman, Alan Fielding. Parents should respect their children for their personal belongings. Item. Shopping malls had a wide choice of items for sale. Tell Claire to unpack the items later. Cruiser. A cruiser is smaller than a battleship, but larger than a destroyer. Find. The most interesting find of all was a prehistoric toy. However, those finds were limited to jaw parts and loose teeth. Logbook. Give me a fix and put it in the logbook. Piece. Mrs. Dada pieced together small patches of cloth and made some pajamas for the doll. It's up to you to piece together the chain of events. Convoy. What should he find but a military convoy? The students volunteered to set up a convoy for the deer. Torpedo. On the very first day of the war, the U-30 torpedoed the steamer, costing 28 lives. Submarines torpedoed many ships during World War II. Submarine. Submarines are already being powered by atomic energy. Naval. He is a big naval hero. Ministry. He works in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Lesson 33. Prelude. The telephone rings, and this marks the prelude to an unforeseen series of catastrophes. The resolution was a prelude to more drastic actions. The orchestra played a short prelude before the ballet began. Unforeseen. Many contractors will overestimate the costs in order to hedge against unforeseen problems. Series. There followed a series of crashing explosions. Then, suddenly, an incredible series of pictures appeared. Catastrophe. The company lost its biggest customer, and that was a catastrophe for its future. Crockery. You hang up hurriedly and attend to the baby and crockery, etc. He glanced at the crockery on the shelf, and suddenly an idea dawned on him. She has a weakness for crockery. Suburb. One day, while returning from the suburbs, one of the tires of my bicycle got a puncture. Many people have moved away from the center of cities to the suburbs. Collide. During the rush hour one evening, two cars collided and both drivers began to argue. Two ships collided on the sea. They collided with each other in the narrow corridor. Learner. The woman immediately behind the two cars happened to be a learner. The letter L on the back of a car generally stands for learner. Don't be so severe on him. He is a new learner. Panic. She suddenly got into a panic and stopped her car. Once or twice I experienced a moment of fear, and it was fear bordering on panic. The few soldiers there withdrew in panic. Windscreen. My daughter painted a scarlet bear on the windscreen of our car. Alongside. Nancy shut the door alongside her, then went around to the driver's seat. He walked alongside Jack until they came to the main street. Slide, slid, slid. The leopards slid along the sides of the cage toward their pedestals. Workers slide boxes across the room. Stray. The Dead Sea Scrolls were found by a shepherd pursuing a stray goat into a cave. The kind lady's house was always open to stray animals. Devour. She devoured the books he brought from home. Lesson 34. Antique. Antique shops exert a peculiar fascination on a great many people. Fascination. His fascination for sociology remains. Forbidding. For nearly a decade, the team had been building a road through the forbidding mountains and jungles. Muster. He can also muster courage and resistance. Pretentious. He is a talented but pretentious writer. Labyrinth. The human mind is a labyrinth. Musty. The shelves are loaded with old musty books whose pages have become yellowish. When the door was open, a musty smell came from the room. Rarity. That painting is a real rarity. The painter seldom painted landscapes. Assorted. Rocks of assorted sizes and shapes are embedded in the bottom of a glacier. The bowl contains assorted hard sweets. Junk. His writing is all junk. When are you going to stop bringing home this junk? Litter. The desks were littered with fruits which the students had been sketching. He lit a candle and slowly went into the garden bed, which was littered with petals. Dedicated. She is a dedicated athlete who practices every day. He is currently a dedicated student, but how long will that dedication last? Bargain hunter. Who would not like to be a bargain hunter? But one has got to have the leisure and the money. It is a bargain hunter who discovered the priceless violin. Dealer. To do this, he must be at least as knowledgeable as the dealer. The dealers hadn't had anything to get excited about in years. You will see a dealer sitting at his door who gossips with a neighbour. Cherish. He cherished the idea of retiring to Switzerland someday. Don't cherish the illusion that he will pay your debts. Amply. Measurements in the laboratory have amply confirmed our prediction. He apologized amply for his error. Masterpiece. He has often described to me how he picked up a masterpiece for a mere £50. A good critic is one who narrates the adventures of his mind among masterpieces. Mere. His inspection was concluded in a mere glance. The empire lasted a mere dozen years. Prize. Frank begged him to do so, and the dealer reluctantly prized it open. The thief prized the casket in less than a second. Carve. He carved his initials on the inside of a ring. The statue is carved out of marble. Dagger. Bellino thrust a dagger into the bear's heart. Miniature. An inventor in Tokyo recently came out with a miniature telephone. We may well call Ants' Wars miniature. Composition. He is always looking for composition in predecessors. Well, the composition is not bad, but the line and colour are terrible. Lesson 35. Justice. The word justice is usually associated with courts of law. Court. Below the courts of appeals are the district courts. Ultimately, his suit was settled out of court. Law. He broke the law when he was born. His parents were unmarried. Innocence. Even the police protested his innocence. Undertake. The reference division of the National Library is undertaking a development project. Arduous. You will not have to spend the next few days recovering from a long and arduous journey. Abstract. There are rare instances when justice almost ceases to be an abstract concept. Beauty and truth are abstract ideas. This theory is completely abstract instead of being based on a more or less mechanical model. Concept. These concepts contradict each other. Mete out. Reward or punishment are meted out quite independent of human interference. The jury carefully meted out punishment for the offenders. On what basis did he mete out the rewards? Interference. This separation exists because of the interference by the state for economic reasons. We don't want any of your interference. Accord. Their views were found to be in perfect accord. Premises. The landlord gave us permission to enter his premises to inspect the meters. A high fence protects the premises. Convert. Chemical energy may be converted to heat. We promise to convert our entire fleet of cars to front-wheel drive technology. Disused. Maybe this is a disused word. Granny grudged to part with anything, including the disused. Fireplace. Who would not like to sit beside the fireplace on cold winter nights? Muffle. Towards midday, a girl heard a muffled cry coming from behind one of the walls. Their footsteps were muffled in the carpeted corridors. The voice came muffled from above his head. Chip. The carpenter chipped and chopped, but the tree stood still. It is difficult to chip old paint off the inside of a container. Blacken. Is it true that arsenic blackens silver? He sought to blacken his cousin's reputation. Emerge. Light could emerge even on the blackest northern night. She saw Lottie emerge from the shrubbery. Lesson 36. Credulous. We are less credulous than we used to be. Improbable. What is there so improbable in it? Everyone present agreed that her proposition was highly improbable. Obscure. Well, that's one way for an obscure person to go down in history. Maidservant. Several local girls were employed as maidservants. Presume. I presumed that my sister would be at home when I called, but she wasn't. Wickedly. He wickedly took advantage of their urgent need for help. Rabbit grinned wickedly. Plot. Proud nobles quarrelled or plotted against each other. There were others who dreamed for Poland and plotted to throw bombs at the Tsar. Downfall. His downfall was caused by his own conceit. It sped the downfall of his enterprise. Naive. Modern readers would find such naive solutions totally unacceptable. Unacceptable. We, for our part, found the Free City proposal unacceptable. Mass unemployment is the unacceptable aspect of modern technology. Conspire. These two factors conspire to cause a loss of control. All things conspired towards that result. Incredible. I can believe anything, provided that it is quite incredible. Resemblance. There are striking resemblances between the twin brothers. These languages have a strong resemblance. Scorn. He asked the question with a streak of scorn. The politician became the object of scorn by the nation's cartoonists. Acquaint. With every detail of Minnie's character, I am acquainted. Reunite. When the brothers were reunited, Hans explained how it was that he was still alive. The ship sank, but the couple was saved and reunited. At long last, all our forces were reunited. Assume. He assumed that the whole school would be present to watch him perform. K. Let's just assume he is guilty. Express. The Murder on the Oriental Express is one of my favourite detective novels. It is a slow train, not an express. I posted the dictionaries to him by express mail. This is an express letter. Punctual. We have learned to expect that trains will be punctual. When I was your age, I was punctual, or I got no dinner, said Mr. Bounderby. Condition. We cannot think outside the particular patterns that our brains are conditioned to. They gradually condition their children to solving their problems independently. Unshakable. He has an unshakable loyalty to his cause. The boss was in no hurry to implement his unshakable principles. Faith. People tend to have strong faith in sciences. Cancel. You cannot cancel the order unilaterally. The appointment was cancelled at the last minute. Exceptionally. Only an exceptionally heavy snowfall might temporarily dislocate railway service. The speaker is exceptionally eloquent today. Timothy is exceptionally leafy and productive. Dislocate. His sudden arrival dislocated all my plans. Blame. It is all too easy to blame the railway authorities when something does go wrong. The high price of wheat was often blamed on the high rent that had to be paid for land. Consult. Anyone having difficulty in assembling the machine is advised to consult our engineer. Direct. This book is translated direct from the original. Why don't you go to the headmaster direct? Odd. At the time, this did not strike me as odd. You are as odd as can be. The man in the picture has an odd little toothbrush moustache. Reflect. He reflected that this was the first time he had seen her weep. They went back home, reflecting upon what they had seen. Advantage. He was aware of having an advantage now. Mighty. Even a mighty express train can be held up by signals. A mighty army, led by the great king of Persia, had come from the east. Dawdle. But when the train dawdled at station after station, I began to wonder. Judy dawdled over a cup of coffee. Must you dawdle like that? Chug. The train chugged through the mountains. The machine chugged, whined, and stopped. Lodge. I determined to lodge a complaint as soon as we arrived. Complaint. Of course he had no complaint to make, for he was being well treated. We are inviting the public to write to us with their complaints and questions. Triumph. we can be sure that he laid down his pen with a final sense of triumph. His face was curious. It showed a kind of triumph. Asterisk. A tiny asterisk conducted me to a footnote at the bottom of the page. Conduct. She conducted us into a cottage. The surgeon lifted up the limping patient and offered to conduct him home. Lesson 38. Calendar. One use for early astronomy was to create calendars. She has the habit of writing the time and place of her appointments on the calendar. Historian. People have always paid honor to historians, but ignored prophets. History repeats itself. Historians repeat each other. Unique. There was something unique about the new theories. The actress imprints her unique personality on all the roles she plays. Steadily. It had been a leaden dawn, and the rain now steadily poured down. Solely. What is more, they will not have to rely solely on the written word. Eventually, she went back to her father solely because there was no other way. Peace is not solely a matter of a military or a technical problem. Video. We saw the movie on video. Many families own a video camera today. CD-ROM. CD-ROM is the shortened form of compact disc read-only memory. Bewilder. As soon as you arrive, you will have a bewildering reading list thrust into your hand. Tororo was scared and bewildered. Deduce. He has to deduce what he can from the few scanty clues available. He expected to deduce new ideas by mathematical means. Mel deduced there were others within hearing. Scanty. Barney knew the scantiest amount of French and not a syllable of anything else. The news today is scanty but good. Clue. I thought there might be clues among all the materials which might take us somewhere. The statement is an interesting clue to both his temperament and his literary method. Insignificant. Mrs. Morrison was so insignificant that no one had ever noticed what she looked like. Shed. Those who shed the most tears are not necessarily the most concerned. Advent. The use of the term had only become widespread since the advent of the documentary film. Agriculture. For people who relied on agriculture for their living, this was a serious matter. Assumption. Recent scientific evidence seems to indicate that this assumption is incorrect. Especially weak are the underlying assumptions of the approach. This assumption is wrong or greatly exaggerated. Dot. His email address is www.salamander.chinaran.net. Symbol. The private car was still a cherished symbol of status. Engrave. An idiom was engraved at the university gate. Ivory. Tony cherished the ivory ball his grandpa had given him. It's funny that a girl called Ivory should be living in a street by the name of Elephant. Mammoth. Mammoths are extinct elephants with a hairy skin and long tusks curving upward. Tusk. The wild boar had its tusks sunk deeply into a tree and howled desperately. A huge tusk decorated the wall of his study. Nomad. The nomads who made these markings lived by hunting and fishing. Correlate. Results in the natural sciences seldom seem to correlate with those in art. Scientists find it hard to correlate the two sets of figures. Phase. The moon has 4 major phases: crescent, half moon, gibbous, and full moon. Primitive. It is, in fact, a primitive type of calendar. These primitive weapons, though crude, are fatal. Depict. On the tapestry are depicted some biblical scenes. The novel depicts the saga of a family. Lesson 39. Rough. The rough road across the plain soon became so bad. Boulder. A boulder rolled down the slope and narrowly missed the car. Pit. They watched the rain pit the sea with tiny craters. The front of his truck was pitted by stones. Perturb. The bad news perturbed her for days. Underestimate. It was not that Bruce always underestimated difficulties. The effects of tariffs on import quantities may have been underestimated. You underestimate his endurance. Swerve. As we bumped over the dusty track, we swerved to avoid large boulders. A motor swerved into the lane. Scoop. The wheels scooped up stones which hammered ominously under the car. She scooped up a spoonful of salt and threw it into the pot. Hammer. I heard a low hammering sound in the bedroom. He dashed into the porch and began to hammer on the door. Ominously. The rain was beating ominously on the window. Rip. The wheelchair ripped a hole in his trousers. He ripped open the envelope. Petrol. I can't stand the smell of petrol and always become dizzy in a car. We filled up the tank with petrol before the journey. Stretch. After a long dry stretch of land, we reached a small lake. These carts are capable of travelling miles through stretches of desert. Obstacle. I cannot see this as a real obstacle to the plan. Clump. Not far ahead was a clump of trees. Who put that messy clump of flowers in the vase? Fissure. Just ahead of us there was a huge fissure. Water has got into fissures in the rock. A delicate daffodil sprang up from the fissure. Renew. In response to the renewed pleadings, Bruce stopped. In January, I renewed my request and this time was met by the director himself. We renewed our magazine subscription. Pleading. All the pleadings were brushed aside. He seemed to relent a moment at their pleading. Gear. He always puts the car in high gear. Gears on an automobile may be used either to decrease or increase speed. Astride. In the past, it was considered indecent for a lady to ride a horse astride. Astride the merry-go-round, the baby yelled with rapture. Crack. There is a crack in that wall. Zigzag. The zigzag path wound up to the peak. There is no way to follow the zigzag course of the human mind. Shallow. Our next obstacle was a shallow pool of water about half a mile across. Sonia put the salad in a shallow dish. Grind, ground, ground. Bruce charged at it, but in the middle the car came to a grinding halt. He ground his teeth and looked fiercely at the traitor. Halt. The bus came to a sudden halt. It is high time to call a halt to cultural vandalism. Dashboard. He took a close look at the dashboard and stopped the car carefully. Lesson 40. Hoax. Students specialize in a particular type of practical joke, the hoax. The bomb threat turned out to be a hoax. I can see through whatever hoax he chooses to stage. Deception. The company spread false information as a deception to mislead investors. Self-respecting. No self-respecting actor would appear in a pornographic film. No self-respecting gourmet would go to a fast food restaurant. Indulge. Bozo indulged in the most high-flown speculations. Pneumatic. The pneumatic boat can hold 5 people at the very most. Stilwell promised his brother a pneumatic gun on his birthday. Drill. The prisoner turned his toothbrush into a convenient drill. Silly. Never have I heard such a silly story. In truth, such criticism is often silly. Advance. Both the police and the workmen were grateful to the student for this piece of advance information. It is a popular show, so advance booking is essential. We sent advance copies of the new book to all the papers. Archway. The visitors walked under the archway and into the palace. The old man stumbled near the archway. Remonstrate. She opened her mouth as if to remonstrate. Mrs. Percy had remonstrated with him about it. Ironically. Irony is not necessarily said ironically. Permission. Permission was granted, and a policeman accompanied him to a payphone. He asked permission of the monitor to leave. Joe took the document without permission. Grant. There shall be no peace until you grant the terms.